Here, Tim Hasselbeck, does this sound to you like it could be the difference between the Cowboys being Super Bowl contenders and not?
Oh, of course it does, because with Pickens and CD Lamb, with the way Dak Prescott played a year ago, we saw how good they could be on offense. Quite frankly, cheap in the past in terms of how they've dealt with some of their star players. This one's totally different for me, and I think some of it, is going to require a little bit of patience on Pickens' perspective. Look, he was shipped out of Pittsburgh because, basically there was some kind of just maturity issues in Pittsburgh, and then he goes and has a career year in Dallas. To think that you're going to become one of the highest paid, players at your position after 1 year in Dallas, I don't think is really fair for the Cowboys to kind of agree to that. And so I do think that Pickens, while he may not love the franchise tag, that he's, staring at playing on, some of it is his own doing in Pittsburgh of why he's in that situation. And so in some ways, or in a lot of ways, I side with, kind of Jerry Jones's posture in this situation.
Why do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I think Jerry's got to be careful with that posture. It's delicate. Yes, I agree with Tim. He's in the right. That this is the reality of playing the position. There is franchise tags. But did you not learn with how the negotiation went with Micah Parsons and sticking to your guns on a handshake deal for you to come out and say, hey, this is what you signed up for? You know what you have in Pickens. You know there's some volatility personality-wise. You want him bought in. But I think the reality is, and maybe this is why Jerry's doing it, he is more of a luxury than a necessity. And I don't mean that to disparage how good of a player he is. But defensively, this Dallas Cowboys team was terrible. That's what's holding them back from taking the next step. So the signings of Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, that's going to be the difference maker. That is the priority, that side of the ball. Pickens is great. You want him bought in. You want him there. But the defense is what's going to be a make or break for them.
Listen, this is a tough contract to figure out in my mind, because he's due the franchise tag number of $27.3 million right now. Mm-hmm. You've got CD Lamb making an average of $34 million a year. We've seen some of these wide receiver contracts. Jackson Smith and Jigba comes in over 40. Puka is going to want right in that vicinity. These numbers are going up. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to want to pay George Pickens more than CD Lamb. He's going to want as much as he can get. He's on the franchise tag. They're not close to a long-term deal right now. I'm just telling you, it's going to be a challenging negotiation for both sides.
Yes, and assuming it doesn't happen, and they have to get something done by the middle of July, or that's it, right?
That's it. Then he cannot sign a long-term deal. And how many franchise or transition players have we seen through the years who didn't get the long-term deal that they wanted, who dragged it out to the start of the season, who came in, who suffered a muscle strain, or went through the season disgruntled because they didn't get the long-term deal? I mean, there have been a lot of players that have been through that situation. We've seen that play out many times in the NFL.
That's right. So when Jerry says this is part of the league, is the franchise tag, so is that. That's part of it as well. The disgruntled player on the franchise tag and where it all leads. It doesn't feel like a story that ends well.
If Jerry Jones doesn't find humility quickly, he is going to lose George Pickens.
Oh, wow.
Jerry Jones, the name of the game is agent dictates the contract. You pay the player, the agent represents the player. Stop trying to change the game. Stop trying to go around the agent. It already cost you Micah Parsons, who is agented by the same human in David Mulugeta, who's quite literally the best agent in football and arguably the best agent in all of the sports world right now. Negotiated over $1 billion worth of contracts. So, Jerry, if you don't find humility very, very, very quickly, you're going to lose a top 5 player on your team and a top 3 player on your offense in George Pickens. A fool makes the same mistake twice. And Jerry Jones, you're acting like a fool. It's one thing to make the mistake once with Micah Parsons, letting your ego get in the way. You want to negotiate the deal with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons wants David Mulugeta to negotiate the deal. It's another thing when you re-rack it with a different player and the same agent, and you doing the exact same thing you did that cost you Micah Parsons. Stop making that foolish mistake. Because let me tell you one thing, Jerry. All of Mulugeta's agents or clients, they rock with him heavy. You're not going to come in between them. So, to me, Jerry Jones, bro, he better find humility, because you try to cut Mulugeta out the deal, you might as well cut the player. You're going somewhere else.
Let's go down to the Dallas Cowboys. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Shefty. Jerry Jones talked a lot at the owners' meetings, but one of those things was George Pickens and his contract. What's the latest situation with the Cowboys' star wide receiver? And do you think there will be a contract extension? And if not, will George show up to training camp? I know that's a long way away.
I'm skeptical that there'll be an extension. It's early. It's April 2nd. But George Pickens is not allowed to be in that building unless he signs the franchise tender. He's not going to sign that franchise tender without there being a long-term deal. I don't see a long-term deal coming into focus until right before the deadline, which would be the middle of July, which tells you that there's a real probability that George Pickens will not be there for the offseason program. Now, if the two sides can figure out a long-term deal that I think is going to be very different.
I'm asking where I need to start fucking digging. He never gives me an answer. But maybe one day.
Sounds like
I appreciate you, Shefty.
Cowboys Nation, let me ask you the question that should have every fan in Dallas sitting up straight right now. What if this George Pickens contract mess is not just off-season drama, but the one thing that could decide whether the Cowboys are real Super Bowl contenders or just another talented team with a problem they never fully fixed? Ha! Because that is exactly where this thing is headed, and Adam Schefter laid it out in the coldest way possible. If there is no long-term deal, Pickens is not signing the tag anytime soon, which means he's not in the building, not in the off-season program, and maybe not around for most of the summer either. And when you hear that, oh boy, that is not small. That is not just paperwork. That is rhythm, timing, chemistry, conditioning, and trust, all getting put under pressure at the exact time this team should be building momentum. Because let's be real here, Cowboys fans. Already know what this offense looked like with Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott all rolling together. It looked dangerous. It looked explosive. It looked like the kind of offense that can make even good defenses sweat. Pickens put up 93 catches, 1,429 yards, and 9 touchdowns in 2025, and that was not some empty stat line. That was real production, real chemistry, and real proof that Dallas has something special when he's fully plugged in. Yeah, that is why this story matters so much. You are not talking about some role player trying to squeeze every last dollar out of a team. You are talking about a player who changed the entire shape of the passing game and made the offense feel like it had another gear. And that's exactly why the Schefter warning hits so hard. If Pickens stays away through the offseason and even into camp, now you're dealing with a player who may show up without that full ramp-up period. That means risk, real risk, soft tissue injuries, timing issues, frustration, all of it. And Cowboys fans have seen enough NFL summers to know how quickly that kind of stuff can snowball. That's why the panel was right to say this could absolutely affect whether Dallas is a true Super Bowl contender. Because at the top of the league, the margin is tiny. Tiny. One receiver missing time, one offense losing rhythm, one star entering the year half push, and another season of what if. Now here's where I think Cowboys Nation has to be fair. I actually understand Dallas' side too. I do. Tim Hasselbeck made a strong point in that discussion. Pickens had one huge year in Dallas, yes, but from the team's perspective, that does not automatically mean you throw a monster market resetting contract at him without thinking twice. Not when CD is already getting paid big, not when the receiver market is exploding, not when you still have roster questions elsewhere, especially on defense. So yeah, I get the logic. The Cowboys are not crazy for wanting patience. They are not crazy for wanting another layer of proof before they hand out one of the biggest. Handling the relationship the right way are not always the same thing. That was the other smart part of the panel. Jerry may be right in principle, but if his posture turns this into a personality battle, if Pickens starts feeling more tolerated than valued, now you create a whole different issue. And that is where Dallas has to be smart. Because this is not just about contract math. This is about making sure one of your most explosive players still feels fully invested in what this team is building. Whew, that matters, especially when Dak and Pickens clearly found a real connection. So my read is simple. The Cowboys are justified in being careful, but they cannot be careless. Big difference. This thing cannot become another summer-long distraction where everybody is waiting on one star to show up and hoping the vibes are fine when he finally walks in. Dallas has the offense to scare people. It has the quarterback. It has the WR1 in CeeDee Lamb. And it has a receiver in Pickens who already proved he can be a major difference maker in this system. That is worth protecting. That is worth handling the right way, because if the Cowboys get this done, if they keep the trio intact and keep the offense on schedule, this team still has every reason to believe it can make real noise. Cowboys Nation, tell me what you think. Should Dallas stay firm and patient with Pickens, or should Jerry just pay the man and keep the offense rolling? Drop your take in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because this story could define the whole tone of the Cowboys season.